Welcome to Eat Your Peas, the podcast about doing what's good for yourself, even when you don't feel like it. I'm Lily Rachels, and I'm serving up bite-sized growth principles to help you build happier and healthier relationships. Hey guys, welcome back to Eat Your Peas. Today we're going to talk about how to use a replacement thought to challenge negative thought patterns. I don't know about you, but I have for sure been in that space where I get into a negative thought spiral, where something will happen that will trigger an insecurity, a negative belief that I have about myself, and then I cannot stop thinking about that thing. What we can do to challenge those negative thoughts is to give our brain a new replacement thought. So I want you to think about what happens when you fold a sheet of paper in half and then open it back up. You're going to see a slight crease in that paper. If you fold it in half again and hold it there for a second, open it up, the crease is a little bit more pronounced. If you fold it in half, run your finger over the seam, open it back up, you now have a deep groove across the center of your paper. The same thing happens within your brain with your thought patterns. How our neural networks work is that our brain is, for lack of a better term, lazy. We want to think the same thing over and over again. So those thoughts that we repeatedly think get stronger and stronger. And then when something triggers us or something comes up, our brain is going to revert back to that thought. So when we have a negative thought pattern about ourselves or an insecurity that we've consistently gone over and we spiral on, the smallest thing can trigger our brain to go right back to that place because that's the easy place to go to. That's where the deep crease is. I grew up around horses. And I always found it interesting that if you put a couple horses in a field, they will walk the same route over and over again to get across the field. And if you go out there, you'll notice like a beaten down path. And our brain is the same way. It's going to walk that same path over and over again unless we train it to think otherwise. You may have heard people talk about thinking your way to happiness. You can do that because you can train your brain to look for the positive, to look for the good. And over time, with enough repetition, you will learn to let go of those negative thoughts. So how to replace a negative thought pattern with your replacement thought. I'm going to give you 5 steps to work on that. Step number 1, you need to identify the thought and where it is rooted. So I had a client who came in and we worked on this. Their negative thought was, nobody likes me. And as we dug a little deeper, I found that that was rooted from a place of feeling like they didn't belong in a group, feeling they were misunderstood by their friends, and some other things that had occurred in their family at a young age. So I want you to identify what your negative thought is, and then identify where it's rooted in. And this may take a little while, so give yourself time. Journaling about that, meditating on that can be very helpful. And if you have a friend that you can talk to about it or a mental health professional, that can be even more helpful. Step number 2, I want you to choose the feeling you want to have. Again, back to that client, they felt misunderstood and like they didn't belong. What they wanted to feel was accepted by their peers. Identify what you want to feel with your new thought. Step number 3, choose your new belief. This is your new thought. This is your go-to whenever that negative thing is triggered in your mind. For that particular client, their new thought was, I like me. It was very simple, and it was something they had control over. They didn't choose, my friends like me, because they could not make those people like them, right? Instead, they chose, I like me. Regardless of what everyone else thinks, I like me. And honestly, at the time for that client, that thought was not completely true. It was a new belief that they were choosing to have about themselves that they had to train themselves to go to. Step number 4, I want you to write and recite your new belief about yourself. Write it down everywhere. If you put it on a Post-it note, you could stick it on your mirror, your coffee maker, the dashboard of your car, all over the place. And recite. Say this out loud. I know you're not always in a position where you can say, I like me, I like me, I like me. Your friends might wonder what you're doing. But oftentimes when we have a negative thought spiral, we're by ourselves. You're free to say what you need to say. Step number 5, do it every time. Just like going to the gym, you're training your brain like you would train your muscles. You can't expect to go to the gym one time and come back ripped. That would be miraculous, and I would be very jealous of you. But that doesn't happen. We have to be consistent in what we're doing in order to get results. It's the same thing when you're training your brain. You have to be consistent. So again, you're writing it down and you're reciting it. And anytime that negative thought is triggered, that spiral happens, you are choosing your new replacement thought, your positive belief about yourself, and you're saying it out loud until that thought goes away. Just like you would go to the gym and rep out those curls or push-ups, you're repping out that thought. So I hope you'll try this if you're having issues with like negative thought patterns or you're getting triggered by something that's consistently going to a negative thought. Remember, you've got to identify that thought and where it's rooted. Choose the feeling you want to have instead. Choose your new belief about yourself. Write it down and recite it out loud, and do it every time. Don't forget to eat your peas this week. See you on Tuesday.